Alright, all you cinema-watching listeners of the madness out there, welcome back to Under the Radar. And I know a couple of you are confused right now because usually we would wrap up the show around this time, but since the maestro said we had a couple of extra minutes left on the clock, we decided for 420, since unfortunately for the Indie Radio Arcade we had a set movie locked in, that we had to review a movie for 420, and we had to pick one movie off the Wheel of Misfortune, and the movie we picked off that wheel to celebrate this special holiday comes from none other than Method Man and Redman themselves from the Wu-Tang Clan. Or at least Method Man, who was a part of the Wu-Tang Clan, known as How High. And the meat and potatoes of this high-flying adventure, which involves not only Silas and Jamal, both not only acing their exams on their first try, only to end up in an Ivy League school known as Harvard, only for the dean to try to stop them at every chance they could because they didn't belong in that said school. And the dean would be Dean Carl, who would be, if anybody who didn't know, was one of the awesome actors featured during the movie Life, which Maestro told me was another movie we really need to mention in the near future for the Indie Radio Arcade, but if not, mention it here. You're right, we really do. And the one thing that I loved about this movie, besides the fact that it featured a litany list of great stars in it, not only featuring Al Shearer, which anybody who don't know was the guy who was actually featured during the BET show known as Hits, but also featured, Redman, Method Man, Mike Epps, who was absolutely hilarious in this movie, and even featured the entire group of Cypress Hill during this said film. I don't know how in the world they were able to pull it off for them to be involved in this movie, but yes, he was. And before I forget, folks, along with them being involved in this movie, you also had Garrett Morris, who was a part of the Jamie Foxx show and a part of the said TV series of Martin. And also, last but not least, because there's a lot of great actors who were featured during this movie, but you also had somebody who was also involved in a movie with High-Like Adventures, which would be Anna Marie Horsford, who was involved during the classic movie series of Friday, and was also involved during the Wayans Brother TV show as well. And another reason why I love this movie so much, besides the comedy, which we will get into in just a second, but also the music featured during this, which also came from Cypress Hill, who actually did a performance during this movie, but it also involved the musical styling of both Redman and Method Man, who would come up with a song called How High that was featured during the end credits of this film as well. And one of my funniest scenes that I picked out for this movie to reveal just one scene from it all that was absolutely hilarious had to be one of the opening scenes of this movie where both Jamal and company would make their way to the school and would see a girl walking down the street or down the side of the school itself, and they would both hang their head out the window saying, "Hey girl, how you doing?" And Redman would go, "Hurr, hurr, hurr, hurr," and they would crash the car directly into the Harvard sign, causing the dean to already not like them already. And what made this scene comedy gold, folks, is the fact that Redman was hanging out of the passenger side of that window along with Method Man, even though Redman was driving the car. I still don't know how he was able to do it, but still absolutely hilarious no matter how many times I'd see it. And seeing the fact that we don't know how to review movies along the lines of Siskel and Ebert or any of those other movie reviewers that you know of out there, we say this: if you want to watch an adventurous movie involving a little green substance that gave them the power to not only ace their exams in Harvard, but to also turn Harvard on its head within a matter of a week or two, then I recommend you go out there and watch that flick. And trust me, folks, the high times they have during that movie is always a good laugh, no matter what day of the week it is, or a special holiday that happens to cross upon it. And I guess with that said, folks, we might as well head back into the music one more time. And when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Under the Radar for this week, right after this. So don't turn away from the madness just yet, folks, and stay tuned.